In this video, you will see how this particular hat was put together. I've been making a lot of hats like this over a period of time, and I sell these on my website, or through my website. So if you would like to visit my website at shopuniquemarket.com, you're welcome to browse through some of these selections. Also at the end of this video, you can check out some of the others that I have recently made. So I hope you enjoy it, and thanks for watching. Hi guys, welcome to this tutorial. It's a DIY about top hats, and this video is for decorating a top hat such as this, which is a costume type hat. And normally these come in different qualities, so you would want to choose the one that's best for you and the one that fits the best. The whole point of this is once you decorate it and you use the material that you need, the final product will be something that complements your costume, that is more personalized. If you're doing a character, if you're doing Victorian or Old West, or maybe even steampunk, that you personalize it better, that it really represents your character, and that it matches your outfit. The final product will look very professional and will look very nice. Okay guys, so we're going to start over with a plain hat like this. This one is just a regular top hat. It's like a costume type, and it's made of that synthetic felt. For this hat, as you saw the finished product already, I'm actually using a polyester fabric like this, and this one is very thin polyester. This is going to help us, like I said, cover the top and the sides, and it's very manageable, and you can stretch it and apply it or attach it as you need to. Now this one is going to be under a layer of black lace. So as you can see, the red doesn't look as bright, but I think the black lace over the red will be a very dramatic look. So this is how we're going to get started. So what you do is, if you're going to apply this with hot glue, you just want to make sure that your piece of polyester covers most of the top of your hat. So if it covers most of the top of your hat, you know you're not going to be short of material anywhere. So you could do a little bit longer than this if you feel a little bit more comfortable with that. So essentially what I'm going to do is I'm going to start gluing on each end, and as I stretch, I glue sections at a time. So I'm going to show you how to do that. Now, as I said before, this is a two-layer fabric covering. So I'm going to apply the red one first, and then I'll do the lace on top of that. So I will put a little bit of the hot glue here, and then I will just hold it down a little bit. Don't press too hard, because sometimes the hot glue will bleed through your fabric. Now the other thing is, make sure, as usual, be very careful with the hot glue, because it's kind of dangerous to work with it, and sometimes we get too comfortable working with it that we forget that we could burn ourselves. So I've done opposite sides here, and I'm going to do the opposite sides sideways. This looks okay. You can always pull down a little bit. Sometimes just by pulling down, it helps get it attached without pressing on the hot glue area. And like I said, you can avoid your glue bleeding through the fabric. Now I want to do somewhat generous amount, but I don't want to, create kind of like thick layers because then it might show through your fabric. Okay, so when you have arrived at this point, I think this is kind of leaking a little bit. So once you get to this point, you know it's attached from these sides. Now you're going to continue to do this, and you could do lines of the glue and then just pull again down like this to make sure that everything is nice and smooth. So at this point, I've gone ahead and glued the entire piece around. Now I'm going to trim the sides. Okay, so I've gone ahead and trimmed the sides. You normally wouldn't want a lot of this because it creates, it will show through a thin layer of fabric. But because this will be two different layers and the top layer being a lace design on it, that will hide this, definitely. So what I'm going to do next is do the same with the lace. And you choose which design you want, which end you want to do, and of course always keeping in mind that you want to make sure you have leftover material, so you want to use it the best way that you can. I'm going to choose this end, and because this is very much like tulle, I can go ahead and do it through the outside. So I'm going to start over again, very little glue, and I'm going to go all the way around and then trim it. Okay, so I'll show you a little bit of how I'm going to do that. Now I can do a little bit on the outside, just always making sure that it is flat and it's applying nicely. And then again, you would do it on this side, so you make sure that your design is really not moving, and it's always a little bit better to work with. So this one is drying very quickly, so I'm going to do this side. And I'm going to do this side now. Sometimes you blow a little bit of air in it so that you help it set a little bit faster. So it's essentially the same process. I'm going to go all the way around and I'm going to trim it. Okay, so at this point I have glued both layers and I have trimmed. So I have measured my hat, and this one measures about 4 inches, and I will allow enough material, so I probably cut this at about 5 inches, so that once it is attached to the hat, is going to start here and is going to be folded in. The excess material will be folded in through this end, so I'll show you how you do that. Whether you add more material at the bottom for folding, that will be up to you. If you are planning on adding a ribbon once it's finished, then you probably will not need to have another allowance on this end. Normally my allowance will be on the top so I can fold the material and it'll look nice and neat. So here is the strip that I will be using, and all of these materials are recycled. I have taken apart other clothing, for example, and I will be using the material. So that's what makes your project in the end very unique. As I said before, this is the height of my hat with the allowance, and of course I have made sure that my material, I started out with a red fabric, and I've made sure that I eyeballed it to the point where I can sew this, no problem, and it'll fit the contour of my hat. And once I knew what I wanted to do with this red fabric, then I cut the lace that will go on top of this red fabric exactly the same size. So if you choose to do this by sewing it by hand, or you choose to glue it, your actual finishing will, how well it looks at the end will really depend on, how clean your fabric is that is attached to the hat. So sewing it, it's always a little bit better. You can always try sewing it by hand, or like I said, you can always glue it. I will sew these two parts through these two ends, and then you will see how it fits over the hat. I will zigzag stitch the two pieces just so I'd attach them together, and they don't move. You know, they're nice and flat with each other. Now at this point I'm going to sew just a simple stitch both of the ends here. Just make sure the ends are where they need to be. And here we go. Okay, so here is the material already around the hat, and I think what I want to do is maybe trim. This is a bit too long to fold into, so I think I'm going to cut it not too short. You want to go about an inch, so I will do that. Okay, so at this point you see it's about an inch roughly above the top of the hat, so what you're going to do is handle the material and fold it down. You want to make sure that this fold is flush with the top of the hat. So the ideal situation would be to go around and make it look as even as possible. Because I'm dealing with two layers of material, it's a little tricky, but I think most of the time you would be probably doing one layer. Okay, so this is the idea. So as you can see at this point, all the material has been folded in, and it looks pretty nice. Now you want to make sure that is set so that it doesn't fold out. So what I would do is I would just pull it down a little bit, put a little bead of hot glue, and go all the way around. Now at this point I would also like to make sure that my material, as I've pulled it down, that it has reached this area right here and it's pretty flush. Now because I have the lace over the red fabric, I also want to make sure that I put a little bit of glue on the outside just to make sure that the lace does not have any movement. When you reach this point, I haven't really bothered cleaning this, but I would want to dust that off. Make sure that all the glitter is off, any dust. After you've done all that, you also want to decide whether you want to put ribbon on the outside. You want to make sure that it covers everything. So I will maybe want to cut any excess left. Make sure that nothing shows underneath. And of course the width that you prefer. Do you want to do burgundy? You want to do velvet, you want to do satin. Those are the kinds of things that you kind of may want to play around with to decide how you are going to finish it up. You could also add feathers, you can add any steampunk elements if that's what you're going for. You could also add a big bow. Now this is intended to be a men's hat, so of course, whatever your finished product is going to be, you decide what kind of bling to add to it. This could definitely go really well with a Victorian theme. Maybe, I mean, all of those that I mentioned before, it would go very nice with an Old West theme as well as steampunk. So I hope you enjoy it, and thanks for watching.